Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Smithville Fiber Internet, streaming TV, home security and automation in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Maller Grodner Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis. lawmg.com. IU Alumni Association, connecting IU's network of alumni and sharing the Indiana spirit through scholarships, advocacy, and volunteerism. alumni.iu.edu. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. rural.indiana.edu. And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up on Indiana Newsdesk. Overdose deaths continue to rise in the state, driven by the synthetic opioid fentanyl, but some recovery advocates are finding it difficult to combat the overdose epidemic.
It's just not a popular idea. It's, for conservative people that just think drug use is bad.
Yellow groove bamboo was labeled an invasive species by the city of Bloomington in 2020, leaving residents facing fines if the fast-growing plant isn't removed.
I think the point's been made that bamboo is just different. It's more difficult to deal with.
But difficulty eradicating the plant has pushed the city to update its enforcement policy. And a popular breakfast eatery on Kirkwood will soon be demolished to make room for more downtown apartments. We'll have more on these stories, plus the latest news from across the state, right now on Indiana Newsdesk.
Welcome to Indiana Newsdesk. I'm Joe Wren. Well, with years of rising overdose deaths, law enforcement and recovery organizations are raising the alarm about fentanyl. Officials know the synthetic opioid is driving the state's overdose crisis. But as Mitch Legan reports, some recovery organizations are finding it difficult to expand harm reduction efforts.
I met Karen Warpenberg at one of her daily trips to check an overdose reversal kit.
And some safe use kits, some brochures, and then I have the Narcan, which is what I'm going to replace.
Warpenberg is the executive director of the Evansville Recovery Alliance. The group started a couple years back to respond to increasing drug overdoses in the area.
Yeah, it looks like they're already kind of full.
Most of those overdoses have been caused by the powerful synthetic opioid fentanyl. Just 2 milligrams of the drug can be lethal, but its effects can be reversed with the overdose antidote Narcan. That's why Warpenberg's out here. She wants Narcan to be easily available throughout the city.
It's just a nasal spray. You just depress the plunger and put it in the nostril.
In recent years, fentanyl has come to drive Indiana's overdose crisis, but not because drug users are seeking it out. Dealers have begun mixing it into other drugs, unknown to buyers. It's a story Warpenberg knows all too well.
I had a friend overdose last year from fentanyl. He had been in recovery and just used, as far as I know, once and died from it.
Like the rest of the state, Evansville and Vanderburgh County experienced record overdose deaths the past 2 years. Almost 60% were the result of fentanyl. Warpenberg says, despite the clear data showing fentanyl's pervasiveness, mobilizing support for harm reduction in the area has been difficult.
It's just not a popular idea. It's, for conservative people that just think drug use is bad and people should stop using drugs. But we need to help those people that are using drugs to get them to a place where maybe they want to stop using.
For example, she'd like to start including fentanyl test strips in the overdose boxes, but under Indiana law, they could be considered drug paraphernalia. The county prosecutor has said he won't do anything about them, but without anything in writing, Warpenberg isn't taking any chances.
Making sure that the fentanyl test strips are legal, and then also providing a syringe exchange is really important to us, and we think it would be really helpful.
She says needle exchanges around the state have proven effective in connecting drug users with resources and eventually getting them into treatment. But officials haven't been keen on the idea of providing drug users with needles.
It's just difficult in this community. We are working with the health department to try to come up with, an agreement on it.
Evansville's location on the state border makes it a prime spot for drug trafficking. Just last week, the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration joined state and city officials to announce they'd broken up a local fentanyl ring. Authorities seized over 1,000 fentanyl-laced pills and the presses to make them.
We continuously seize thousands of fentanyl pills on a yearly basis in multi-kilogram quantities of fentanyl here in Evansville.
Gannon says that investigation highlights a growing trend. More fentanyl is being produced domestically and to look like legitimate pharmaceuticals, not just street drugs like cocaine or heroin. He says ground-level advocates like Warpenberg are key to stopping potential overdoses.
It's 50 times more potent than heroin and 100 times more potent than morphine. So you're going to get people addicted. We need to understand in law enforcement, in the community, we got to come together because we can't just arrest our way out of this.
Warpenberg says her group has been able to expand harm reduction efforts in the area. They just installed the city's 6th overdose reversal box. But she says continuing stigma will make progress slow.
They don't think they're going to run into it in their own lives. But I think the more that people know and the more work we do, that there'll be more of a positive outcome.
Although it's been gradual, she believes people are seeing the value in her group's work. Just last week, she heard from 2 people who used her Narcan to save a life. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Mitch Legan.
Indiana's weekly average for COVID-19 cases and Hoosiers hospitalized for the virus has grown over the last month. And while people spending plenty of time outdoors in the summer may help keep numbers down, experts say they anticipate more cases and reinfections as we head into fall. After averaging fewer than 250 new cases per day in March, last month the state averaged about 1,300 cases per day. That's likely a significant undercount with so many people testing at home. Now, most of the new infections in Indiana are among 20 to 30-year-olds. We're joined now by Brian Dixon, a research scientist and director of public health informatics at the Regan Street Institute. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
So BA4 and BA5, now the dominant variants of COVID. How effective are the vaccines, boosters that people have gotten against them?
Yeah, so emerging data suggests that neither the vaccines nor natural immunity from prior infection are that effective at preventing reinfection with these new variants. However, there is evidence that vaccine and boosters are protecting people against severe disease, hospitalization, and death. In fact, we released a new study today that we published with colleagues at CDC, Kaiser Permanente, and others in MMWR that confirms the importance of keeping up with vaccinations. For example, individuals 50 and older, vaccine effectiveness against hospitalization was 80% following a 4th dose of the vaccine against the BA1 and BA2 variants. And so we're looking at data now on BA4 and BA5, and we're optimistic that we will continue to see strong performance against severe disease with these newer variants.
You know, we're into our 3rd year of the pandemic. A number of people have been infected multiple times. So is each infection worse on the body, or does it drive more what we hear called long-term COVID?
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of good data on this, so it remains unclear whether there's a cumulative effect from reinfection. So any kind of infection is a risky event for everyone, including the risk of long-term effects. So current studies are looking into these risks, but it's going to be a little while, unfortunately, before we know something more definitive. Individuals who are at higher risk of severe disease, therefore, should, in addition to staying up to date on their vaccines, they should also continue to take precautions like wearing a mask when they're indoors, especially in crowded locations and those with poor ventilation.
So how concerned are you about children going back to school in the fall, especially hearing less than a quarter of the state's 5 to 11-year-olds vaccinated?
Yeah, I'm actually quite concerned with the return to school that begins in just 2 weeks for some school districts here in central Indiana. Currently, cases are increasing, as you pointed out earlier, but it's also increasing in kids aged 0 to 11 across the state. They only account for about 5% of all the cases in Indiana, but cases overall are rising and hospitalizations are increasing, although slowly. But given that only a few school districts or no school districts will have have any sort of prevention requirements like masks in place for this school year, and the high transmissibility of these new variants, I could see rapid increase of BA5, for example, in school populations when school resumes. And although the kids themselves are at low risk of hospitalization and death, we fear that they're going to take the virus home and spread it to those who are at higher risk.
All right, we have to leave it there. Again, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
We're joined now by Holden Absher for headlines from around the state. Hello, Holden.
Thanks, Joe. Indiana Attorney General Todd Rokita made national headlines when he announced that he's investigating the doctor who performed an abortion on a 10-year-old rape victim from Ohio. As Haley Ryan reports, Rokita appeared on Fox News Wednesday night.
After the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, the Indianapolis Star story went viral. A 10-year-old girl had to travel from Ohio to Indiana to get an abortion. An Indianapolis doctor performed the procedure on the girl, but Rokita says she might not have reported it to the state, which would be illegal.
We're gathering the information, we're gathering the evidence as we speak, and we're going to fight this to the end, including looking at her licensure.
The undocumented man who allegedly assaulted the girl was arrested Tuesday in Ohio. Rokita blamed President Biden's border policy for the incident, along with Marxists and socialists. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Haley Ryan.
The Indiana Department of Health on Thursday confirmed the doctor who was named during Rokita's segment on Fox had filed the proper report with the state. Rokita has not responded to the revelation. The Indiana General Assembly will hold a special session later this month to likely enact strict abortion restrictions in light of Roe being overturned. But abortion rights groups are not giving up and plan to hold more rallies. The ACLU of Indiana says the fight for reproductive rights is a marathon, not a sprint.
It's important for lawmakers to see all of the people that are against this very unpopular effort to ban abortion in Indiana.
Lawmakers plan to begin the special session July 25th. Village Deli will be demolished and replaced with a 4-story building. The restaurant will stay on the bottom floor, and the top 3 floors will house 25 apartments. And while plans call for the current building to be knocked down, property owner Bob Costello says the restaurant will temporarily move during construction.
The current plan would be to relocate the Village Deli in another location so we could continue to provide your delicious pancakes.
Ryan Strausser with Strausser Construction says the project is geared to graduate students. Thus, the ground floor will only include a 12-spot parking garage.
We think that it's going to take less vehicle parking because they're going to be more reliant on going to campus, bicycle parking, using public transportation.
The project team says it would like to begin construction as soon as possible, but Duke Energy currently has overhead lines crossing the area. IU Athletics will no longer take cash for tickets, concessions, and merchandise purchases at athletic venues. The move announced this week is effective immediately. IU says the change is designed to improve experiences for fans by reducing the amount of time they're waiting in lines. Major credit cards, Apple Pay, and Google Pay will be accepted on game days and at the IU team store. U.S. prosecutors say they won't seek the death penalty against a man accused of killing an Indiana police officer last summer. Shane Meehan still faces a federal murder charge over last summer's fatal shooting of Officer Greg Ferenczi outside an FBI field office in Terre Haute. In an emailed statement, Chief Federal Defender Monica Foster called the decision correct, pointing to Meehan's history of mental illness and brain damage. Meehan's trial is set to begin later this month. The Monroe Circuit Court dismissed a lawsuit filed by Seven Oaks Charter School for violating the county mask mandate. The Ellettsville Charter School was fined in 2021, and Headmaster Stephen Shipp argued that the local regulation didn't apply to schools. The lawsuit claimed the county commissioner's private hearing last fall violated Indiana's open door law. Well, that's all the time we have for headlines. Joe, back to you.
Thanks, Holden. Coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk.
Indiana homes have more second refrigerators than almost any other state, but they can be an energy drain. And yellow groove bamboo may look good in the yard, but it's an invasive species the city wants eradicated.
These stories and more right here on Indiana Newsdesk.
Year after year, PBS has been bringing you the news you trust.
We care about the things that are going to affect the lives of each and every American.
The in-depth analysis you need.
What we normally see in these big crises.
And the true stories that have to be told.
We're a place that people can come not just to find out what happened, but why it matters.
It's all thanks to the support of viewers like you. Thank you. And stay tuned to America's most trusted network.
Your favorite member benefit is getting better and bigger.
This is wonderful.
Over the next year, Passport is adding new shows and doubling the number of episodes for you to stream.
They give us all that they've got.
From your favorite cooking and travel series.
Even the stairs are breathtaking.
To history specials and award-winning documentaries. Better and bigger.
That really is the fun part.
Stream on any device with Passport on the PBS Video app.
Welcome back to Indiana Newsdesk. President Joe Biden has been in Israel and the Palestinian territories this week on his first Middle East trip since taking office. Ethan Sandwise talked to a Middle East expert, has this report.
The president takes off for Saudi Arabia today, where he'll meet with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, despite previous assurances that such a meeting would not occur. While some critics have pointed to the meeting as a policy pivot, IU Assistant Professor of International Studies Hussein Banai says this move could be expected.
Saudi Arabia, at the end of the day, is a country that is of great strategic importance to the United States, and whether, especially given the domestic worries with high inflation and high prices of gas, it doesn't matter what moral or ethical qualms any particular leader has.
Saudi Arabia's ongoing war in Yemen has been unpopular in the United States despite the U.S. government's continuing support. Banai says Biden is unlikely to achieve any progress toward a ceasefire.
The Saudis have basically made it clear that when it comes to Yemen, U.S. support has been bipartisan since the Obama administration, and that at the end of the day, if they don't do anything, the Iranians will fill the vacuum.
Biden met earlier today with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas in the West Bank. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Ethan Sandwise.
Hoosiers are more likely to have a second refrigerator than people in most other states. That's according to a recent survey from the Energy Information Administration. Now, as Rebecca Thiel reports, having multiple fridges can drive up your electric bills and pollute the environment.
Fridges can use up a lot of energy, especially if they have to work extra hard to keep cool in a hot garage. Jennifer Amen is a senior fellow with the American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy.
So if you have a second refrigerator, particularly one that's 15 or 20 years old, now that could be costing you $80, $100, or even more than $100 a year to operate.
That often means burning more coal and natural gas for that electricity. Fridges can also leak a powerful greenhouse gas called hydrofluorocarbons, or HFCs, though they're slowly being phased down.
And for now, we're still using, a majority of fossil fuels on our electricity grid. And so, for the time being, at least, we certainly want to try to minimize that to deal with the climate crisis.
For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Rebecca Thiel.
A man says instead of using that old second fridge, you might consider buying a larger main fridge, an energy-efficient mini fridge, or for hunters, a chest freezer. You can also unplug your second fridge when you don't need it. Well, the city added yellow groove bamboo to the invasive species list in 2020, meaning homeowners are subjected to fines if they don't remove it from their property. But as Pat Bean reports, the unique nature of the plant has caused the city to amend its enforcement policy.
But you can only do so much at a time with the piles. You can only burn so much. It's been so dry.
Yellow groove bamboo towers over Karen Charrington in the backyard of one of the two homes she owns next to each other on West 6th Street in Bloomington. The yard of the house she lives in doesn't have the bamboo, but this one does. Stands of it line two sides of the property, providing a buffer to alleys.
I like the privacy. I like that the birds love it. It stays green in the winter. It gives off more oxygen than oak trees. It helps with the pollutants from Kirkwood and Adams. It's just, it's a protector.
It's also illegal to grow in Bloomington since it was added to the invasive species list by the city in 2020. But maintaining the bamboo, which Charrington has been doing for years, is not enough. The code says the fast-growing plant, which can reach heights of up to 25 feet, needs to be eradicated. The reason the yellow groove bamboo is an issue is that its rhizomes, or underground stem system, grows horizontally, allowing it to spread under fences and across property lines.
Just about nothing stops it short of cement. And so when you plant it, you're really planting it for all of your neighbors and surrounding properties because it keeps moving.
Jay Cart understands the desire for residents to want to keep their bamboo, but she says the damage it causes far outweighs the benefits.
I can tell you wonderful things about poison ivy, but what you have to do is you weigh the pros and the cons.
There's also the danger of the bamboo growing into power lines and sparking a fire. That happened recently to a garage on West Wiley Street. So late in 2019, an amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance added yellow groove bamboo to the list of banned plants.
And we're not the only community with bamboo eradication, ordinance. There are others in Indiana and certainly others across the country that have been forced to deal with the problem.
The bamboo was on Charrington's property when she purchased it. She didn't know it had been listed as an invasive species until she received the first of a handful of citations 1 year ago. After back-to-back fines a week apart in May totaling $150, Charrington appealed her case to the Bloomington Board of Public Works.
Years ago, it's not this board's purview to be able to allow you to keep the yellow bamboo. It's whether or not you're actually...
I really thought they'd let me grandfather it. It just doesn't seem right. They pass an ordinance and then they don't tell people, and then they don't have any funds or any help to get rid of it. I mean...
But thanks in part to Charrington's appeal, Hand amended how its invasive species policy deals with yellow groove bamboo. The invasive species code calls for citation with a warning or a fine of $50 on the first violation. The fines increase with each subsequent violation, and if the city has to remove the plants, the cost is added to your property tax. But for yellow groove bamboo, the policy is now a warning followed by a 90-day window to show progress. If none is shown, the fines begin.
I think the point's been made that bamboo is just different. It's more difficult to deal with. And so, it was important for us to kind of come up with, because we're required by the ordinance to enforce it, what's the most sensible way to do it?
With the policy change, the Parks Board threw out Charrington's previous citations and fines and started her 90-day window last week. Charrington is making some progress. She's had truckloads of bamboo removed from the property and is keeping that area mowed. She's also laid plastic to keep bamboo from growing, but still has the thicket bordering the property. She says the cost to completely eradicate the bamboo would run into the thousands. Jay Cart calls that the nuclear option. She says one way to control the bamboo is to cut it every week or two when the bamboo sprouts anew.
If you can commit to simply cutting down all the shoots as they pop up over and over, the roots will run out of energy and the plant will die.
Charrington doesn't want to remove all of her bamboo and still hopes to keep the stand along the edge of the property as a privacy fence.
Now, I, of course, do not want to get fined. But I also want to be able to keep some of my privacy. And I hope that the city understands that, and especially since mine is not a problem for anybody else.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Pat Bean.
The Bloomington City Code for Invasive Species says weeds, grasses, and noxious plants must be maintained at a height of no more than 8 inches. Well, Bloomington cat enthusiasts have found the perfect way to spend their weekend. The Buskirk-Chumley Theater is hosting the 2022 Cat Video Festival. Mitch Legan has this report.
Buskirk-Chumley Theater Director Jonah Crismore says finding new content in the summer can be a struggle. So when a friend reached out about the 2022 Cat Video Festival, he knew he had to pounce.
It's just like a big celebration of those videos that you probably scroll through on social media, that kind of put a smile on your face for 30 seconds.
The idea is what it sounds like, a festival of cat videos from people around the world. Cat-related media, including animations and music videos, will be featured.
We're hoping, with the world the way it is, where there's not a whole lot of smiles, that this will be something where you can kind of just be entertained for a couple hours and just have a smile on your face the whole time.
Cat Video Fest 2022. Watch hilarious cat videos.
This will be the theater's first time presenting the festival, which shows across the U.S. and in Europe. Crismore says he's been surprised by the enthusiasm he's gotten.
It was a lot of, I really hoping that this one cat video that I liked, back in December is going to make the list. So I think it's like some of these videos have their own fan base. They're going to be coming out to it.
As for if Lil Bub, Bloomington's celebrity cat, will be featured, Grismore says viewers will have to wait and see.
I wouldn't say it's out of the realm of possibility, but I can't confirm that or deny it. So.
For Indiana News Desk, I'm Mitch Legan.
The Monroe County Humane Association will receive 10% of ticket sales from the event. Representatives from the organization will be in the theater lobby with goodie bags and therapy cats to pet. Well, that's the end of this program, but our work continues online as we cover the news throughout the week at WTIUnews.org. Have a great weekend.
Indiana News Desk is made possible in part by Smithville Fiber Internet, streaming TV, home security and automation in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Mallard Grodner Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis. lawmg.com. IU Alumni Association, connecting IU's network of alumni and sharing the Indiana spirit through scholarships, advocacy, and volunteerism. alumni.iu.edu. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. rural.indiana.edu. And by WTIU members. Thank you.